Good morning, everybody. My name is Victor. I have about 10 minutes to talk about my journey into medical physics, and I'll be very fast about it. In secondary school, we had 4 arms in secondary school. We had arts, commerce, science, and engineering. And somehow the science class was always considered to be that those that wanted to study medicine and surgery, but I didn't even choose that. I actually chose to go into engineering. And part of it was that my dad is an electrical engineer. So our interest has always been that, okay, we'll just follow daddy's path. We had this computer center that we were running, and so that was just the natural path for all of us to follow. But I never really had any specific interest with engineering. I was not interested in technical drawing, for instance, which was supposed to be a huge part of that engineering experience. So eventually, even though I chose engineering, I tried to study electrical and electronic engineer like that, but never really got the admission for that. Eventually, I got admission into electronic and computer technology at the University of Calabar, So I did that for about 2 years and just found out that I was having absolutely no satisfaction with the course I was studying. I didn't see myself doing that in the long term. Doing engineering repairs, for instance, that wasn't necessarily the thing that I saw myself doing. So even though I started the course, I never really completed it. After about 2 years, I now went back into school and wrote JAMB again. And this time around, I was admitted into the BSc Physics program. And I can say that that was probably the best 4 years of my life. I thoroughly enjoyed school. And I don't know whether the previous time it probably was that maybe I was too young to enjoy university, or whether I was not really in tune with the course, But the second time that I got into uni, I thoroughly enjoyed school. I was into physics press, started writing a lot. I started the NIP version, student version in the school. That's Nigerian Institute of Physics. I started joining student politics, becoming director of information and all of that. But it was quite interesting for me just to get immersed in what university life is really supposed to be like. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that. Eventually, I got to know about medical physics somewhere around my 3rd year. At that time, Dr. Sam Yang at the time, he was not yet a prof, had just come back from South Africa. He went to South Africa to study his medical physics course there. And he had just come back. I think I briefly saw him in year 1 before he left. And then he came back in our year 3, like 2nd semester. And that was the first time I was like, okay, finally I found that I can find what I'll do with this, my physics degree, because I was having the time of my life, and I was like, after all this, will I now end up not even studying practicing the course at all? So I was very lucky that Professor Sam Yang came back at the time that he came back, and he's a very respected member of NAMP at the moment, So it was a life-changing moment for me, and I'm sure that he doesn't even still know this yet. But at least I found something that I could be passionate about. So I started investigating into what medical physics meant and what they do, and that it won't just be that they are sitting idly in the office waiting, that they are properly engaged in the day-to-day running of a radiotherapy center, which is always something that I wanted to do. I was always afraid that I'll end up just sitting down waiting for one big thing to happen before a physicist to be called. I wanted to be involved on a daily basis on what the proper care or the proper outcomes of my intellect. So it was quite interesting for me. Eventually, when I finished that, I went to NYSC in Kaduna and applied to be a lecturer at the University of Calabar. But while that lecturing was being processed, I got a job in First Bank, head office. And I had a very nice time there as well. So I got a job at First Bank. I went to Lagos, had a great time. They did like 3 months of training for us, housed us, fed us. Eventually, they moved us to wherever he wanted to go. And I found myself in international trade at the head office. I had a wonderful 2-year time, but I was never really going to stay there for long. By the time I got to, anytime I visited Calabar and I go to the university just to greet my lecturers or anything, they'll just call other students and say, come and see this our best graduating student that turned into a banker, that the guy is just wasting, you know? So, but they always try to convince me to come back. Eventually, I got a lecturing job in Unical, but it wasn't just the right timing for me. You know, I just settled into my banking job at the time. I just settled into having my first car, living in my first big house, wearing suit and going to work every day. So it was just really, really fun to do that. So it just wasn't the right time. That as soon as I settled down was when they now called me and said, I'll come back and do lecturing. And I just thought it wasn't the right time, that maybe I needed 1 or 2 more years to fully engage this part that I was doing with banking, you know. But I always knew that I was staying in banking for 1 or 2 or 3 years. And by the end of the second year, I was already looking for a way out. So eventually I started applying for master's courses. And at that time, I went to speak with Professor Aweda at the University of Lagos and told him that I'm currently working, but my real passion is to do medical physics. That would this be a good time for me to come and study it? That I really want to know, because I'm going to stop working and come and be doing a master's course. I want to know that it will be worthwhile, that it won't be a waste for me, you know. And to my greatest truthful surprise, and I really enjoyed his honesty. To my surprise, he said that that particular year was not the right time. That there were lots of maybe issues with partly accreditation, partly residency programs that they were trying to start for medical physics graduates, partly that there was a kind of backlog that was that they were trying to sort out the students that had already taken the course. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so basically that's what happened. And I could not start the course at the time because the lecturer had advised me that it wasn't a good time. So I just tried to get other alternatives to what I wanted to do. I applied for masters overseas, and then there were scholarships that I was trying to get into. Eventually, I got the NITDA overseas scholarship for postgraduates in the United Kingdom. So I went to York for 1 year plus, you know, and that's how my journey had gone at that time. My entire goal was always to find something practical that I can apply myself with, and with a real life immediate application to solve a difficult global problem. My challenge has always been for physics, with all the major great people in physics, was that sometimes you can do an invention or discover a formula, and then it might take another 5 decades for that formula to be put into productive use. And I just didn't see myself wanting to do that. I wanted something that I can apply immediately. I wanted that to know that this thing that I was doing was helpful in some way. So even with my BSc project, I made sure that it was a physical thing that they could hang on the wall. So I did one big chart of nuclides for the university and combined Japanese, American chart of nuclides and all of that. I made sure that it was something that was definitely something that it can hang, you know, so that I can see my solution. I always wanted to be part of a solution in my own lifetime, to be part of a working solution, not a part of something that just You know, so in the world today, there are three major challenges that I figured out. There was sustainable energy. Nigeria is still grappling with energy, talk less of sustainable altogether, you know, but there was sustainable energy. I was thinking about, do I go into solar energy? That would be something that in my lifetime, solar energy becomes very cheap, would have solved the problem. The biggest countries, industrialized countries in the world today are still grappling with sustainable energy. They are still using coal to produce their energy, or even when it's nuclear energy, it's not exactly as safe as it should be for them, you know. So these were the three challenges. Sustainable energy, space exploration is something that Tesla is trying to do now, Elon Musk. But cancer was the one that really caught my attention. Cancer is a disease that has just not been able to be solved. You know, we've practically solved COVID-19 in 2 years, and cancer, we just cannot say that this is a solution for cancer. We've solved HIV/AIDS now, and cancer is the one solution in the 21st century that we really are still grappling with. And so I wanted to be part of this kind of solution, find something that we can do, find ways that we can alleviate the pains of people going through cancer out of absolutely no fault of theirs. You know, we are yet to even identify that this is the exact cause of cancer. So somebody comes down with breast cancer, you can't say that you were smoking too much or that you were eating Indomie too much. You can't necessarily say that that's what caused it, you know, for people to be able to avoid that kind of engagement. So it's been, cancer is the biggest 21st century health challenge at the moment. You know, this is how my roadmap eventually went. I started my BSc in physics, but even before then, I did BSc electrical and engineering, even though I didn't complete. Went into banking. I got the NITDA scholarship to go to the UK. The NITDA scholarship is actually very tailored to you doing an IT course. So I even asked them whether I could do a medical physics course. They said, no, you have to do IT, you know. That's what the scholarship allows you for. So I eventually still did the wireless computing. It wasn't an opportunity I was anytime planning to miss, you know. So I ended up doing the wireless computing course at the University of York. Eventually, I came back to Nigeria and did an MSc medical physics. At this time, I still went back to the university again to talk to Professor Aweda and asked him that, okay, I'm back in the country. Is this now a good time for me to do this medical physics? And he said, okay, yeah, that is a nice time. I spoke to Mr. Ben as well. Mr. Ben works at Ekpo Hospital as a medical physicist. So I found him on LinkedIn and sent him a message, told him that, I'm interested in doing medical physics, but I don't exactly know what it entails as per day-to-day running, you know. So he told me that I could come over to his office and see what working as a medical physicist entailed. So I went there, saw him, he showed me the Cobalt 60 machine that they had for radiotherapy, showed me what they do. And I said, okay, this looks like an interesting thing that I would like to do. So eventually when I got the admission to study MSc medical physics, it was one of the first people that I sent a message that, Chief, I've gotten admission, that will still come around and be disturbing you from time to time. So it was quite an interesting thing for me. Eventually, I finished my medical physics course. I did an internship at Sweden Ghana Medical Center, Cancer Center in Accra, Ghana. At the time, there were no functional linear accelerators in Nigeria. I finished from Lagos, and Lagos LINAC was down at the moment. Ekpo Hospital only had a Cobalt 60 machine. Ibadan only had a Cobalt 60 machine. Abuja machine was down, and they were trying to just install their new machines. So luckily for me, I've always been involved in some kind of business. So I found my way to sponsor myself to Ghana and spend a few weeks and months there with them before I now came back to Nigeria and got the ASUPO job as a medical physicist. So these are the three things that have guided me. I've always known that if I have the knowledge to do this thing, the passion was that I want to solve a global challenge, that if I have the passion and I have the knowledge and the skill, that this was the right thing for me to do. And I think of all of this, probably the passion was the most important one, that I have to be sure that this is something I want to do when I'm 50, when I'm 60. I don't want to think about it and say, after I'm midway into my career, that I'm not doing this any longer, But the passion to see how cancer patients can find a succor, that they have a solution, that it's not a death sentence, that there's a way forward for them, that at least there is a glitter of hope that this thing, if I spend the required money, cancer therapy is very expensive, but at least if you spend the required money to do it and you discover it on time, you have a chance at life. That's always been my passion, to see how that whole thing plays out. So these are the things that have helped me in the past. I've always had a knack for maximizing my potential. So no matter what I do in my current job, it's always about what else can we do? What else can we improve? What is it that we can change? How can we become better? Is this the best that we are? Is this the best that we are, or we are just being lazy about it, So if there's always a little bit of potential that I can improve, if it requires me to read a book or to ask questions, to knock on doors, and say that I want to do this, that's my relentless principle in life, that I must maximize my potential no matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter whether I'm making enough money or not, but is this the best that I can become? I have one life and I have to make the best out of it. I have to thank a lot of my mentors. I've always talked to people that are practicing, Anything I want to go into, I'll go around and speak. I want to thank Professor Aweda. If I had probably done the medical fields at the time that I did not go to knock at his door, I probably would have wasted another 2-3 years of my life just doing nothing and being in the cycle. But he told me that I should just chill. I'd like to thank Mr. Ben. Mr. Ben probably just took me under his wings and showed me the way that this is what it really means on a day-to-day basis, apart from the academics in the clinic, that this is actually what we do. I'd like to thank Dr. Ekpo. Dr. Ekpo is like my big mentor during my master's course. I even when I was doing the master's, I was like, if it wasn't here, maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it at all, but it was always forward going, giving you difficult challenges to look at, telling you that, we should be able to write a wonderful paper out of this. As an MSc student, that seemed to be strange at the time, but he was always pushing the envelope, saying that, we should do this, we should do that. If you have an idea, he will jump on it and even call other people, give you energy to run with it, So this has been some of the things that have helped me in my work. So what can you do if you want to go into medical fields? One of the things I'll tell you today is to volunteer. We have a foundation, Pink Africa Foundation. If you tend to see these cancer patients one-on-one, last week we just did the World Cancer Day over the weekend, and I was talking to one of our volunteers, Verity, had volunteered for us for a while and had not yet seen a cancer patient. So when I wanted to see the patient at the office, I told her, oh yeah, come inside. You can't be program manager and you're on the road only, showing placards. That it's a good thing that if you see this thing one-on-one, you understand what these people are going through. So we saw a woman that had sores all over her breast. Her hand was now swollen from breast cancer, and it helps if you see it yourself. You can identify, you can almost touch, you can almost feel it, that gives you an idea. Is this something that I would like to work with? Is this something that I want to help people with? Is this something that, given my experience and my intellect, is this something that I can delve into and see how we can solve this problem for Nigeria, for Africa, for the world in general, in fact, And then if you want to go into medical fields, you have to ask a lot of questions, ask what it entails, whether it's diagnostic medical fields, know what it is to do a day-to-day job. What does it mean? What does it mean when you come to the office? You know, the therapy medical physics is almost different from the diagnostic medical physics. So you have to say that this is where I want to work. The other time I was at Mikio to visit my colleague Daria Dewa, and I could see what he was doing with nuclear medicine. But you have to decide which aspect of medical physics that you want to do. And you have to first be sure that you have the passion to do what you want to do. Passion is very important. Otherwise, after a while, you get tired. We have a lot of issues with patients coming in late. There was a day that we lost a patient who had come in very, very badly. And I had to go and meet the oncologist and say that today is a very bad day for me. We've taken pains to try and see how we can treat this patient. It's a stage 4 patient that has HIV, has other comorbidities. And at the end, the patient just died, and I was just devastated that all the effort that we had put in, but those are bad days. But if you don't have the passion for it, those bad days will probably just knock you off your seal, So it's important that you know why you are doing this, that the patients that you are saving. So that's basically, that's been my passion for the job. Last year, I was telling one of our non-medical physics staff that this is what I wanted to do all my life, and that I'm really pleased that I'm going about it right now. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll entertain questions if there are any.